In my opinion, the best color you can have as a studio background in a small home studio is this one, gray, because it doesn't have to be gray. If you change the color of light on it, you can have a red background, or why not change it again and have a blue background, or maybe even whatever color background this is. The thing about gray is it's super versatile when it comes to colored gels, but to get it to be this intense does require a little bit of work. And if you stick around to the end, I'll show you how to take exactly the same technique and create this final photo. To help me out today, I've got the amazing Chloe. Chloe's going to be the model for this photo session, and the first picture I'm going to do is always an important picture, but today it's never been more important because I've set my camera up to some settings that may change, but we're going to start at 250th of a second, my flash sync speed, f5.6 for a good depth of field, and then ISO 200, my native ISO for this particular camera. And when I take a picture at those settings, no flash gives me no picture. That is telling me that this background can actually be a black background, and that's important because we're going to add our own light and we don't want any of the room lights to contaminate that background with color we don't control. Let's talk about the gray background, because it's only gray because of the light color that's falling on it. You see, light from the room lights and this flash are white light. Yeah, not great lighting, we'll worry about that in a minute. And white light on a grey background means that we see it as grey. So what happens if I change the colour of that flash by adding a gel? Let's do something really obvious and not exactly fantastic to look at, but a green gel is going to change the colour of that grey background to, well, you can probably guess. Here we go. Yeah, did you say green? You were right. And boy, is it green. But then so's everything else. So if you want to light the grey background as a different colour, the technique is simply to put this light that's going to light the grey background between your subject and the background. So if I do nothing more than just put a clean white light on there, it's going to take that grey background and show us grey with a silhouette for Chloe because there's no light reaching the front of Chloe. But that grey background, if I get a blue gel, I pop a blue gel on there, that's going to go blue. Chloe's going to stay as a silhouette. And if I swap it for another colour, let's say red for example, then you can guess how this is going to work. The key is separating your subject from the light that is on the background. Now, if you don't want to have a silhouette, then you're going to have to put some light on your model. So this is my key light. It's going to light Chloe, and I've set it up so it matches my camera settings. Now, in theory, if I take a picture like this, we should get this light lighting Chloe, and then the backlight lighting the grey background to red. Yeah, that didn't really come out how I hoped. What happened to the background? I've lost the intensity of the red that we had before. So what's going on? Well, remember earlier where I said about making sure that we had a black background, no flash, no picture? Well, it's exactly the same now. I still need a black background, and this light is pointing straight at that background, which means some of it will be reaching the grey and illuminating it away from black. We can see how much that is if I turn the backlight off and just use the key light. Do we still have a black background? No, we definitely do not. And that is why my background gel has all washed out and become pastel and lost that rich intensity that I was hoping for. One option might be to add a grid to this light, but in fact, that's not going to help because if the light is still pointing at the background, it's still going to light it with or without a grid. So you need to think of other options, and there are two things I'm going to do to improve the look of our gelled background. The first one is to get the light closer to Chloe. That gets something called the inverse square law into our equation, but luckily we're not going into that today. You'll find other videos on that on Adorama TV, so go check those out. Once it's closer, I'm then going to angle the light away from the background. Now we call this feathering the light, turning it away from something we don't want to light. I'll just take a photo, it's much easier to show you. So here we go, let's take a little photo. The background light is turned off. And I'm now getting my black background that I was after. Yes, it's not completely black, but it's dark enough that when I turn that background light on with its red gel, I'm going to get this. Lovely, strong, red, intense color, and still great lighting on Chloe. And I think that's pretty good. So, Chloe, if you're ready, Let's take a few photos like this. Here we go. It's a really good idea to lock your camera's white balance down. I've gone with 5200K as a custom white balance. Try and avoid auto white balance in your camera because that can affect the color of the gel your camera records from one picture to the next. I love those pictures. I really like the edgy feel of them, but that's not everybody's taste. But that's one of the compromises you have to make in a small studio space, unless you're prepared to do a bit more work. So we could, for example, do something like this. The black surface of the 5-in-1 reflector is a flag. It's there to block light from reaching things like, oh, I don't know, your background, but allow light to hit your subject. We could do that. But I've got an idea that uses this technique in a more creative way. Hold on. Because this red fabric is doing exactly the same job as the 5-in-1 reflector. It's acting like a flag, but also I can include it in the picture as part of the scene. So we've got red fabric for the curtains. We've got Chloe in a red dress. What color are we going to put on the background? Yeah, I'm going to leave it red, pretty obviously. I might change it, but for now, this makes sense. Red, 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 always looks powerful. Here's a quick little test photo. And red does look super good. The texture on the curtains looks really good, so I'd like to replicate that in the background. So the grey paper doesn't really cut it, but it doesn't have to be a grey paper background. It can be anything that's grey that you can turn to another colour. So this is just grey fabric. I've added that same kind of patterned effect to the curtains at the back and the curtains at the front. The problem is, if I light it with red, now everything sort of blends together a little bit too much. So I'm going to swap out the red gel for something, well, a little more suitable for the time of year. Let's see how the green gel works with the same setup. Quick little test photo. And that, I think, with a little bit of tweaking, is going to be absolutely wonderful. So, should we take a few photos like this? Chloe, are you ready? Okay, here we go. There is one more way I can refine the look of that background gelled light, and that's to adjust how much light I pass through the gel. So if I make that flash stronger, I'm going to weaken the color effect. But if I make the background flash less bright, I actually make the color more intense, rich and saturated. But do bear in mind, at either end of that scale, there is a point where the effect just doesn't really work. So a little bit of an experiment is always a good idea. If I could only have one background in my small home studio, it would definitely be a grey one. It's super versatile because you can add all sorts of gels on there and create all sorts of colours. Now, you've probably got a favourite colour. I don't know if you can guess what my favourite colour to work with in the studio is. If you can, stick it in the comments down below. Whilst you're down there, check out the links. They'll take you back to Adorama and you can find out about all the gear I've been using in this video. Give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. And of course, if you haven't already done so, you should definitely click on that subscribe button. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.